And we're back here once again with another episode of the MSK show. And this is going to be episode 191. And in this episode of the MSK show, I am going to be having a conversation with Mr. Nick Klie. This is going to be his first appearance on the show. And I hope we have a great conversation for you guys. And I also hope you guys are having a great day as well. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend that is ahead of you. Make sure you guys are outside, going to a carnival, going to a festival, going out to watch a movie, not Snow White, apparently. No one's watching that, actually. And maybe you go out for dinner with the family, just something, create a memory in your life on a weekend that you'll just cherish forever, Well, as being a white, black guy, I didn't have a dad growing up. So, we didn't have the dad memories, I just had memories of, sitting at home and watching TV most of the day, at least in the morning, and then late in the night, on Saturdays, actually. Man, those were the days of staying up to like 2 a.m. watching Toonami and going into Adult Swim. Holy mother of God. Crazy life, actually, Fair
you
guys
enough.
don't know this, back in the day, when it comes to like anime, because I know a lot of people love anime now, which is awesome. I like when things can grow and be expressed to new people. A lot of you guys don't know the way we consumed anime back in the day was much more different than you guys consumed it. You guys just pull up a website, which we had later on, but you guys could just pull up any kind of website, just have anime, or you have on streaming services or whatever. Yeah, we had to wait for that shit week to week when it was dropping. So if certain people feel a certain way about certain arcs, it's probably because they had to kind of consume said arc week to week, month to month, very slowly and very, very drawn out. A famous example is that Bleach arc, which is called the Bound arc, which you had to consume month after month before it got to the Iranka arc, week to week, slowly. Yeah, that's why a lot of people don't like certain things. Like, I could care less for Sakura. I think she's just trash character. Nothing's changed my mind about that. I watched that character from the moment she existed to the moment she's at right now. Trash. So, just saying how you grow up and how you consume a certain product can affect the way you look at it. And
so do you know about like the old video store corner?
Shoot.
See, you're talking about like, oh, back in the day when we did this, like, well, let me tell you, son. You used to go to the video store, usually an independent video store, and you had to go to the back of the store and find the adult cartoon section, because it was different than the kids section. And that's how I consumed anime back in the 90s, man. You had to go there and just see what they had. And you were lucky.
You mean adult content? Do you mean going to liquor stores and having certain sections closed off?
No, because back in the 80s, they used to put stuff like Akira and heavy metal and wizards in the cartoon section. So kids would rent cartoons that were meant for adults, right? So in the 90s, when they started putting like anime in video stores, they had a separate section from the cartoon section where they had the anime stuff, and it was considered like the adult cartoons. So you would find like Ninja Scroll, you'd find, Macross, Appleseed, Ghost in the Shell. You'd find those, and you just have to go there and rent them and see what it was, because couldn't figure out if they're any good or not until you watch them.
Man, you guys don't even know some days. Like, the way we consume stuff used to be DVDs, and that's a foreign concept to you kids out there. Like, you used to get anime on DVDs and just watch 4 episodes until they released another one, or you wait until they completed a season, which would be in like a box set with like DVD extras and some shit like that. That's when things started getting a little bit more better. But goddamn, man, you guys have it so easy now. Like, even for me, I'm a comic book guy, as you guys can see, where like growing up, I didn't really have access to a comic book shop, or we didn't really have a lot of money. So I had to kind of just read these stories online. And when I got the chance to actually physically purchase the books, of course I did. You guys can see I don't have an addiction. Let's just say that. And I may or may not have books that are unopened right now that I'm opening up later on at a comic book call. Nevertheless, you start appreciating a lot of the books the more time, because I get to experience all these like great omnibuses and collected editions and shit like that. Whereas people, like, let's use Spider-Man, the Clone Saga, like for me, I never read the Clone Saga before. So I can just read the omnibus, pick it up and go, okay, this is probably either good or bad. Imagine you're someone who is just sitting and reading that month to month, very slowly.
From the grocery store.
Out. In the groceries. Yeah, different feeling, But it's nice to see the different parallels and duality in certain things, like binging something when it's all completed rather than like being there in the thick of it. That's how it is for like I don't know if you're reading like any of the new current DC alternate universe titles for the Absolute Universe, like Absolute Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman. But going through Wonder Woman, because we finished issue 3 last night of Absolute Wonder Woman, it's like, okay, this is good, I guess. It just feels very slice of life, and the pacing is kind of slowing down with these later 2 issues. But I hope it picks up, because I've never read an omnibus before in my life. I need to actually conquer that demon by reading a full omnibus. Omnibuses are 1,000 pages, guys. Pray for me. My brain's gonna die.
Yeah, it all depends what you get, man. I mean, I only got like the giant omnibus. I think I only have like an X-Men one, just some like the Jim Lee stuff. Yeah, I mean, everything else is usually smaller volumes, like,
Think that's just easier to basically consume, is just getting the smaller volumes and just going through that?
I don't really like the giant ones. I don't mind them. Like I have a couple, but like I said, like the X-Men one, I got some absolutes over here, but they're kind of uncomfortable when you're reading them. I read most of my comics on the toilet, so.
Oh my god!
I can't be dragging this thing out. Yeah, I can't be dragging these things out in the toilet, man. Come on now.
Are you a dust jacket on or off, man?
Usually off. Yeah. Because I don't want to rip it by accident. I got a couple of books that I was looking at the other day, and I just kept dropping the damn thing. So what does it really matter? It's gonna get ruined one way or another.
I was reading the DC Absolute Power hardcover with the dust jacket on, and I was like, man, this just keeps randomly falling as I'm trying to turn a page.
Yeah.
Next time, I'm taking that shit off. Not happening.
I don't even really see a point in them, to be honest. I mean, it just pisses me off if you have it and then you wreck it. You're like, well, now it's not complete. That's that like collector mentality getting the best of you.
Yeah.
It's like, it's got to be pristine. It's like it's a piece of paper there that's meant to protect it from damage. It's like when guys get cases for their CGC comics. It's like the point is, it's like a point is the case is the case. So I need a case for my case in the bag. Like, have you ever taken a CGC apart? We had a broken CGC come in one time, and I ripped it apart, and there's the outer case, and then there's like an inner case, and then you got to rip that apart and rip that apart, rip that apart. I was like, how many damn bags are there on these things?
I never got into the whole CGC grading when it came to like trading cards or like comic books at all. I just I understand grading a comic book or a trading card that you really, really like. It's one of your favorites. I understand that. But people are trying to basically kind of get something old, grade it high, and flip it. And it's like, is there really that huge of a market, or is there like that big of a demand for that? It's always felt very, very like artificial to me. Maybe I'm wrong. That's how it felt to me.
It's not for me. Like, I get people that do it, and it's just not for me. So teach their own. I don't care. I think if you enjoy the buying and trading aspect of comics, it's better for that, because then you have that guarantee on it. It's all about that guarantee. But for me personally, like I said, I when I buy in comics, I mail order like fines. That's 6 out of 10. I just want to read the damn thing, and I want it to be in good shape. I don't need to be mint, and I'm not looking to flip it later on. So it just depends what you want. But for me personally, that's not for me.
So later on, when you come on the show and have a second appearance or third appearance later on down the road, we won't have to do this again. So let's start from the very beginning. How was your life growing up, actually?
Good. So what, you want the whole story, or you just want a general overview?
That's up to you.
I mean, I'm just a regular kid from a working class family.
Okay.
Single income, nothing special.
What state were you born?
No state. I'm from Canada.
You're from Canada?
Yeah, I'm from British Columbia, Canada.
Okay. So
I grew up in a small town of 10,000 people. I got my comics at the grocery store. And as into the 90s, when comic stores started popping up, I was able to start getting things like back issues and direct market comics, and just kept going from there. Like, my first major comic was G.I. Joe, because I was a G.I. Joe fiend when I was a kid. So got that at the grocery store every month. It all went from there. And then, got into Image Comics in the 90s, and then switched over to Marvel, and went to DC. And now I'm mostly like Europe independent stuff, European stuff, a lot of sci-fi now.
So talking about Marvel and DC, what was the last run you read from Marvel and DC? And have you basically just went cold turkey on them both?
No, I mean, I'm mostly buying back issues now. I'm mostly like a lot of people. During the pandemic, I started going through my garage, my closets, sorting stuff out. And I was like, I'm bored. I'm gonna start reading my old comics. And then I started reading my old comics, and I started thinking I should finish these runs. So I buy a little bit of everything. Like, I'm still buying new comics, but I'm mostly buying like G.I. Joe, Transformers, Conan, Ninja Turtles, some stuff like that. And then, like the last comic I read was probably a Marvel facsimile of Avengers Annual that was drawn by Michael Golden. It's the first appearance of Rogue.
Ooh.
That's the one where they recover Captain Marvel, and she gives them all shit because they basically let a alien warlord hypnotize her and kidnap her and force her to be his wife, and she gave them hell for that. And then other than that, I was reading Starjammers. That's the like X-Men spinoff from the 90s. It's just a mini series from like Cyclops' dad and those guys. I'm just reading those back issues because I always wanted to. I bought them cheap recently. And then when I'm not reading that, I'm usually reading Fist of the North Star.
Okay.
Yeah, so just weird
as
collecting.
someone who's, reading back issues and the older stuff, do you think a lot of it holds up very well, or do you think it just kind of is all just nostalgia bait?
Hit or miss. So there's some comics that I reread and they're absolute garbage. I won't mention them because I don't want to be negative like that, but they're absolute garbage, but I love them. And so there, there's some titles that like it was a miniseries. So I had one issue when I was a kid. So I grabbed the other 3 parts and I can read the whole miniseries. The issue that I had as a kid, I love everything about that issue. The other 3 issues are trash because they don't hold up. It was a time and a place, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Other things, like I recently reread the first Savage Dragon miniseries, like when it was first, I think it was 3 parts before they launched into an ongoing. That really held up well. I haven't read that comic in 30 years, and it really held up well. I thought it was like, wow, like this is timeless. Like this could do good. So, it just depends. It all depends. But I mean, like I said, some of it's nostalgia and some of it is just talent. It's hard to say, right? But it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? So,
yeah, like you have people that say these certain things about Image Comics back in the day. They're like, oh well, the comics that came out were beautifully drawn but badly written. Now, keep in mind, guys, you were very, very young when that happened. So badly written could have been basically maybe, it just didn't appeal to you because you were a kid. Because like I noticed that when I got older, certain things that I didn't realize when I was a kid hit harder. And then the things that I didn't realize as a kid later on, and vice versa, hit harder in the same way. So, maybe go back and look at your older stuff and see if it really holds up for you. I generally do that with a lot of my favorite things. Like, maybe was this really overrated? I'll like binge an entire show and be like, okay, no, it holds up kind of fine. It's issues here and there, but holds up very fine. Like, I don't know if you ever watch Power Rangers, but Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in the 90s, the very first few seasons. Okay, the first season's pretty passable, but the later ones are like, oh my god, I could understand why they changed. These were
but they're made for kids. Like if you ever see interviews with Todd McFarlane at that time, he always talks about like, oh, the kids will love it. The kids will love it. The kids will love it.
Yeah, he says,
and it was made for kids. So if you were a kid in the 80s and you're a teenager or in your 20s in the 90s and you were reading Image Comics, you probably didn't like it because it wasn't for you.
Yeah, or just out of your age demographic. Like
exactly.
Things, yeah.
Like same thing. Like you go back and watch old cartoons, and it's crap. It's because when you're a kid, it's more palatable. It makes more sense when you're a kid because it's a more simplistic plot. But as an adult, it's not going to hold your attention because you have you've matured, you've grown mentally, you've matured mentally, emotionally.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't mean it was bad. It just wasn't for you or isn't for you anymore. I kind of have a problem with that. Like I always talk about when they're making like kids comics into adult kind of properties. And they said, well, yeah, like, like we grew up on this and we want it for us. It's like, yeah, well, you can't take your toys with you. You got to leave your toys for the next generation. Right. So making these characters R-rated now, even though they were always G or PG rated, doesn't really make sense because you're taking it with you and you're not leaving it for the next audience. Right. So it's kind of unfair.
Yeah. It's also a thing where like I kind of told this to people, when you're a kid, you just kind of like everything because you have no real reference on how things are done, how things were made, how any of the process works, what it takes to get it. So you kind of just mostly enjoy something because it's kind of new and it's kind of just that fresh set of eyes on something. And kids really just don't like judge anything. You don't really get that kind of mindset until later on in life.
You're inexperienced.
Yeah, so when someone says, "Oh, I enjoyed this as a kid," it's like, well, you're kind of supposed to. You're a kid, and then there's stuff you didn't enjoy because there's stuff you don't enjoy. But for the most part, 95% of stuff you put in front of a 5-year-old boy, he's gonna probably enjoy because he didn't fucking know any better. You give that boy a candy bar, and a book. Oh my god, it's the best. You just made that boy's day for like an entire week. Honestly, as an adult, you give me a candy bar and a manga. It's gonna be like, okay, that's probably like my birthday present right there. It's like, okay, things are different now at this point.
Yeah, it's all just it's part of growing up.
So the other thing about you was that you have you said 10 to 20 years of experience working at a comic book shop or various comic book shops, actually, you know?
Yeah, I've been in the comic book industry for 20 years now, and I managed the store most of the time there. So I started in 2005. I want to say, yeah,
Good
exactly. That was,
God.
yeah.
God. So you've worked in comics essentially in the retail front, you would say, for
Yeah,
20
like
years. That's
yeah,
crazy.
like, I'm a comic book retailer. Yeah, so and at that time, the industry was really changing. I mean, we were going from the kind of back issue comic book stores where it's just all back issues to kind
Yeah.
of the more hybrid stores where they had graphic novels and a lot of anime and manga started popping in,
Yeah.
toys, things like that. And so we were kind of in that phase. And my boss, the owner, he had bought the store a couple of years earlier, so he was all aboard for switching those to that kind of new style. And so I mean, and a lot of those older kind of comic book stores, they got wiped out in the recession in 2008 when the economy crashed. And a lot of those old stores, they had so much money invested in back issues, and when their bills came due, they just crashed, and it was a terrible time for the industry. And then it rebounded, and then like the Marvel movies start popping up, and then comics become kind of cool again. The next generation, people my age, start introducing their kids to comics. Now they're growing up with comics. So I've seen a lot of different phases in the comic industry. It's quite interesting. And right now everything's in flux again, just because of the economy, the world, tariffs. But the industry itself is in flux with all the distributor wars and stuff like that. Like a lot of behind the scenes that people don't know. I mean, as a store, we used to have like 3 main distributors. We used to get all of our comics and toys from one guy. We used to get all of our.
Do you guys have a Diamond up there, or is that
yeah?
just
We get through Diamond.
Diamond?
But
Okay,
that's changed now. Like in the last couple of years,
yeah.
when Diamond started falling apart during the distributor wars, it's mostly one called Universal, and they're one of the companies that's looking at buying big chunks of Diamond, and they may actually buy Diamond.
So I want to ask you about that since you worked on the retail front. This is very important for a lot of people who don't know this stuff. So pending on your relationship with Diamond at various points, did you have a good relationship with them with a rep? Because I hear different stories about all the time. It's like, oh, my rep was a bad person, he hated me. My rep was a good person, he liked me. Did you have a good rep whenever you would interact with Diamond for like orders and stuff?
Yeah, that all changed too. So we used to have a rep, and they were great, and they were lifers. They were there for a long time. It was a career, and they were great. And then people started changing over, jobs and things like that. And then they kind of went to like a rep pool where like you call like you don't have an individual rep. There's like a team of reps, what they call like a hot desk. And then they've kind of during the pandemic, they kind of got rid of that. And now you kind of just do everything. You create online tickets. You go to a portal and you say, this is my problem. And then they email you back. You kind of don't even really talk to anybody on the phone anymore. It's really changed. And that's true of all those distributors. You used to have people that would call you if there was an issue. They would call you in like almost like a car salesman. They would know who you were. They would know what you liked. They would know to watch out for your account. If you accidentally ordered something, they would know. If you ordered not enough, they would give you a hint. That's all changed now. It's all just lowest bidder. I mean, do you know much about Warhammer?
Yeah, it's crazy. No, I don't.
Okay, so Warhammer's a game, right? And they used to hire fans to be their employees, and then they would train their employees at their stores to become sales reps. Okay. And so when the sales rep would call you, they knew everything. They knew so much because they could answer every single question you had. But they don't do that anymore. They just hire people off the street now. And it's quite frustrating because you'll say, like, hey, I need this really specific, obscure thing, and like let's say it's like Dragon Ball, right? They've never watched Dragon Ball. They don't know who Goku is. Never mind, they know who Cell is and which version of Cell. And so he's like, hey, I need a statue of Cell version 3 or whatever the hell, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, what the heck is a Cell? That's what you're dealing with now. So the industry is quite frustrating.
Basically, like it's what comic book fans want for movies. They want the comic book writers who wrote the good stories to work on the movies, but they're hiring someone that's like fucking fresh out of college. I'm saying, yep. Yeah,
and I get that. That's the reality of the industry, right?
Yeah,
that's the reality, right? So it just is what it is, but it's changed. It's not changed for the better.
Yeah, like what I noticed with certain businesses, I'm pretty sure you guys have it up there in Canada too. You know how like businesses like Best Buy or like your internet provider, you could like message them online and talk to them
Yeah.
directly, essentially. Or you have a program like StreamYard where you used to have that where I could just message a rep and talk to them about my issue. Now you just said what you said earlier, which is true. A lot of companies either they go the Best Buy way, or you email a rep, or you flip it and you just email them, you submit a ticket or whatever, and
You
then
talk to an AI.
and you maybe might get a response. It's like, bro, it's so 50-50.
Yeah.
So when you guys heard about Diamond, the distributor, kind of basically filing for bankruptcy, you already kind of knew that in advance. I'm pretty sure you got some whispers that they were going to do it anyway.
Yeah, everyone's been speculating about that for a long time, even
Mhm.
before they started losing everybody. Because that's the thing about Diamond right now is Diamond doesn't really have anything anymore. What they had was they had exclusives. You know, I mean, Diamond almost went out of business, and then the Walking Dead TV show hit. And then Diamond was the exclusive distributor of Image Comics. And so
Yeah.
Amazon, Costco, all those places that had Walking Dead on their shelves, they got those from Diamond. And so Diamond went through this almost bankruptcy period, then this massive boom period, and then the recession hit. DC left. Everyone starts, or not the recession, excuse me, the pandemic hit. DC leaves, and now Diamond was almost bankrupt. But this time it was serious because they have nothing really. The only thing they have exclusive is this large network of independent small publishers. And that alone is not worth a lot unless Todd McFarlane buys it. You know, that's the big rumor right now is that Todd is looking at Diamond, and that would be huge because if he
I
brings
think he could do it.
Image back into the fold for Diamond, that changes everything.
You know what's crazy about that is that I realized that if he actually bought Diamond distributor, that makes it even better for Image Comics because you would have a guy that works with your company that is the person that owns the distributor, so you wouldn't have to go and basically, you know, get your books distributed from another person. It'd be like an all in-house kind of thing, and they would, you know, since he owns it and they're all his friends, he cuts them a fucking share of the books that he actually distributed through them. It honestly would be a genius thing for them if he actually did buy it.
Because like the thing is that it costs money to do it yourself. So sometimes it's better to just take like a license fee. You know, like is it really worth Disney Plus having their own streaming service, or should they just get a license fee from Netflix? So the same thing happens with if Image buys Diamond. Yeah, they're going to get a better percentage on their distributing their own product, but they have all that infrastructure they have to do, right? They have to have the warehouses, they have to do all that stuff, right? That's a problem. The thing is if they follow what what's his nuts Kirkman with Skybound is he takes like a VIG, a cut on all the books that go through Skybound now. And what he does is he uses his connections in Hollywood to exploit your IP, to exploit your property, right? So let's just say this is all hypothetical. This is just me spitballing ideas. If Todd buys Diamond and Diamond becomes basically Image distribution, all those small little companies that are now like that independent network I just talked about, they are now a part of a larger thing. So Todd can go like, hey, if you give me a cut, I will exploit your properties, you know, the way Kirkman does with Skybound. I will use my connections in Hollywood. I will use my connections with toys. I will use my connections with sports cards or whatever the hell, right? It's a huger opportunity for Todd and Image, but it's also a better exposure for all those small companies now. Suddenly, maybe going to Kickstarter isn't the best idea anymore. Maybe being a part of Diamond distribution, or excuse me, Image distribution, you know, is a better idea for you, right? It could be huge for Todd because he apparently also just lost the DC license for toys back to Mattel,
which is crazy.
Todd's going to be looking for a new project, a new way to make money, and something like this could be a huge money maker for him.
I liked what he was doing. I'm pretty sure you guys have to have these kind of things up there in Canada. You have the page punchers where you get a toy and a comic book in there. Those were great. That was a great idea to get kids in the comic book. You get kids, what kid doesn't love toys? You give them a book to read. Great idea there. Like he's obviously very successful in all his business adventures. I would personally, when it was rumored that he would kind of buy it, sounds like a slam dunk deal, not only just for Image Comics, but you know, for everyone involved there, because that thing about what you just said about Skybound is what I heard too. They kind of like maybe will shop your idea around to other people. But then again, you also, like, I'm sure you get this, there has to be enough money on the table for that, you know, because like not every smaller title in Image will have the same value. Like Ghost Machine will have inherently more value than something like maybe, you know, Bug Wars from Jason Aaron currently right now, or Radiant Black. You know, maybe Radiant Black pops off and becomes animated one day.
Just getting those guys, those independents, option money,
True.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
royalty fees. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what what's his nuts? Dave Gibbons. Dave Gibbons talked about that with Watchmen. He said when we signed the deals for the Watchmen IP back in the day, we wanted was option money. You know, they didn't care if they ever made a movie. They didn't care if they ever made a TV show. They had no interest. He said every year, every month, or whatever it is, you get that mailbox money. You get that check where that movie studio is paying you to hold on to that license. And if it sits in limbo for 20 years, what do you care? You're just getting paid for them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what Todd helps all these guys do, or whoever helps these guys do, is like you said, Bug Wars. If let's say let's Disney, okay, let's just use Disney. If Disney sits on that license, they don't care. They don't care if they make a movie. They're just getting money, like just mailbox money forever, and that's good for them. Honestly, get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like the other thing I want to ask is, since you dealt with a bunch of distributors, did you guys always end up most of the time more or less end up with like damaged products too?
Yeah. We are not as bad as some of the horror stories you see out there. A buddy of mine, he's got a shop and he's further up north from me. His damages were like 25 to 50%, you know, because he had so much further to go and there's more people handling your packages. Our damages from Diamond were usually 5%, 10%. It's obviously gotten worse in the last couple of years because everything's gotten worse. Everything is just lowest bidder, lowest bidder, lowest bidder. Diamond was pretty good. Universal, that Canadian one, they're the gold standard right now. They're very good. It's a little expensive because they use more boxes and there's tons of packing material, but their stuff shows up pristine because they've been in the game forever. They were Diamond used them forever to get French language products into Quebec up here. So they have decades of experience. The main one though that Marvel and IDW and Dark Horse and a bunch of other ones was Penguin Random House. Penguin Random House is like 50%. When I special order a book for somebody, I order 2 so I can give them the best one every time because those things show up smashed. You'll order like 10 books in one order. You'll get them in like 4 boxes and they're all different shaped boxes. Some of them are envelopes, some of them are padded envelopes, some of them are small boxes, some of them are big boxes, and they are all smashed all the time. It's awful. It's such a waste. And like, it's not just frustrating because it's a waste of money because you get these things credited to some degree, right? You get like a partial credit or like a full credit. You got to send them back. You got to destroy them, whatever the hell. It doesn't matter. It's a colossal waste of time to deal with all this damages.
Yeah.
It's just such a waste.
Because the other thing that most average people don't get when you work in a comic book shop, or let's say like one that handles like trading card games or like other retro stuff, is, guys, when it comes to cards and comic books, you also have to sort these things, because when it comes to sorting might be the most tedious thing when it comes to doing that stuff. No one talks about it. Yeah.
We don't do back issues. There was a guy in town that used to do back issues and we did new and he did old.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into back issues because that is insane. I didn't know about this, but I only found out about this year. There's like machines that will sort cards for you now.
Really? I didn't know that. That's
crazy.
Like,
it blows my mind. It's this little thing and it picks up the card and it scans it and it assesses it and then it sorts it for you. It's amazing. Like if you want to, I hate AI, but if you're going to use AI to do that, that's great. Because and they're slow and they take scans and it sorts it and then it loads it onto your website and stuff like that. There's a couple shops in town that have them apparently. And I had no clue because we used to take, when we had Magic ages ago, we still sell it new, but we used to have singles. We used to take these big boxes like this and throw them in the dumpster. I mean, this stuff, you would just end up with so much of this crap that was totally unsellable, totally useless. But now you can get a machine that does that work for you. And I was like, that's incredible.
You know what's also the worst part is having so many boxes of shit that you've opened. That's the worst part, man. I have it here sometimes when I do like comic book hauls on my second channel. Yeah. And it's just, you have so many fucking boxes. You have so much trash. Oh my God. Like you'll go into shops and there's just piles of boxes there.
I mean, we used to get guys that would come in from other towns and tell us like, yeah, like my local comic store throws them out by the long box kind of thing, right? It's like, yeah, it just is what it is, man. I mean, we know people that have used bookstores and they have to throw them out in dumpsters because they can't recycle them and stuff like that. Like it really is sad. And like that I was talking earlier about how the business model has changed from the back issue stores, right? Part of that problem is like, in the 90s when back issues were really hot, you only had a good 30 years, 20 years really of comics from Marvel, DC, and some other ones to deal with. Like there was just less inventory. Now, I mean, you put another 30 years on top of that, of all this stuff that's just so many different publishers. It's almost impossible to keep track of it. And that's why you see guys do, they don't really have like back issue stores anymore in some towns. It's more like, like online back issue online sellers, because they don't have to have a retail. They can just have warehouses and stuff sorted properly, and it costs more money, but at least you can get what you want when you want, because it's just, you see these monstrous piles of these books that people don't know what to do with. I mean, we had a massive pile, and about probably 10 years ago, we packed them up in bags about yay big, and we went to the university and we gave them away to at like a intro barbecue for free. We just gave comics by this, must have gave out thousands of them because they just didn't know what to do with them.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you, because I don't think I ever asked you this so far, is what made you wanted to get into comic book retailing? Because most people want to do a bunch of different things, but you wanted to do comic book retailing, or was that a later decision? Actually,
no, I mean, that was a practical decision. Like I love it. It's a great job. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we'll talk about this later. Making my own comics. I always wanted to make comics, right?
Okay.
And eventually, there was a comic store. I was like, oh, I'll just get a job there. I was dating this girl, and her best friend was dating the owner, kind of thing. And I ended up getting a job there, and I just really enjoyed that. And I thought that was a nice, kind of middle ground. Like, if I can't make comics, because I had given up on making comics by that point, but if I can't make comics, I can at least sell them. And it's a really fun job. Right now is a terrible time in the industry for admin work and minutia, but it's still a really fun job, and I'd still rather do that than anything else. But I kind of fell into it. But I love the industry, man. It's a lot of fun though, because at the end of the day, like, it's cheesy, but you're selling people, happiness. You're selling them what they want, So people come to your store, they buy stuff you love, and you get to talk about it and have a good time. And yeah, you got to deal with a lot of BS, but I mean, that's a good way to make a living, man. It's better, beats selling gas.
Like, this is something that I always tend to criticize people on is, I'm pretty sure you saw this photo. It came out last year or late 2023, where you had this one guy who basically said, like, he pointed to the price. He said deadbeat customers are the reason why certain stores aren't around. And he pointed to this number about, it was like $1,450 and something like that. Everyone remembers it was a big talking point. Like, if you guys don't get this, okay, so average people think of it like this because it works this way. You go to a building, you buy someone's product, that publisher, whoever made it, right, gets a cut of it. It does not work that way in nerd hobbies. Basically, as you know, we'll use Yu-Gi-Oh! For example. You have Konami, you have the distributor, then you have you guys, the retailer. Okay, so Konami makes the shit, distributor buys it from Konami, and the comic book and the shops buy it from the distributor. Okay, so when you say certain things like, well, if we want to hurt them in the wallet, we just got to stop buying their products. Guys, the products are bought for months in advance. Why do you think leaks happen? I know he can't really say these things, but leaks happen because the shop owners see everything coming out months in advance because they get a catalog, because people have told me, and then they get to decide, okay, this will sell very well, blah, 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 blah. Why do you think leaks happen? They leak it to their friends. They can't leak it. Pretty sure there's a contract where you can't leak this shit because that's like unethical, or there's a reason probably for it. So
the thing about the leaks isn't the retail aspect as much as you think it is. It used to be.
Okay.
It used to be.
I thought it was. Yeah.
Pre-internet, it was a lot more, but like people started changing those things kind of like around the death of Superman kind of thing, because people were giving stuff away. So it's not as much as you think it is. A lot of the retailers we don't know until you guys know. There's things like magic cards. People tell me about them because they've heard the leaks. A lot of it is within the company itself, like the manufacturer, and a lot of it is the people who actually make the stuff, like the actual manufacturing of the product, right? So it's not as much as, like, we don't have as much insight as you guys think we do, and usually we're finding out the same time you guys are. Usually when I see it, what I see is codes and prices and dates before you guys do. It sucks now, but most of my distributors I deal with, I don't see pictures of the product.
Because I heard back in the day it was way different. You used to see pictures of them.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So
what changed all that? Really, was it leaks that changed it because it would spoil the products to people?
Yes and no. So some companies don't care about leaks because they're putting it out. They don't care. It's publicity is publicity. Other companies, they operate on a model where they think, like Warhammer is a good example. Warhammer only gives you 2 weeks because they want you to make a bad impulse decision. Okay. They want you to see that product, get really excited about it for a week, save your paycheck, and then go get it the next week. Other companies, like toy companies, they need months of lead time so they know how many to make, because they don't want to find out that nobody wants Dragon Ball toys. I'll use Dragon Ball again as an example. They want accurate numbers, so they don't really care about leaks. The stories, that's usually the company themselves that are leaking the stories. Like when when the news hits where it's like, oh yeah, so and so dies this week. I mean, we don't have the comics in our hand, and we don't have from the company until that week. So if we get it on Wednesday and the story leaked on Monday or Tuesday, who do you think leaked that? It wasn't us, because we don't get it. We don't have it physically in our hand. It was Marvel. It was DC. They leaked it because they want the hype.
Or you could say it, because you know how easy it is for someone to leak something. Like back in the day, you said it was different, and it's true. We didn't have the technology at that point to where it leaks stuff. Guys, literally now, you could have an editor on the team of working on whatever book leak that to their friends. Their friends said, and they always say, don't tell anybody. That's never happened. They'll always tell someone. Like, you can literally text someone an image of something, and then they'll just post it. Then it just goes viral. Like recently, in one of the Omnibus Facebook groups, someone posted a picture of the new Nightwing Omnibus coming out from the New 52, or it's Rebirth era. One of them is the book written by Tim Seeley. Guys, who do you think leaked that? The publisher did, or one of the person working with the publisher leaked it to their friends, and they had them leak it for them. Like,
leaks are usually fake news. It's usually
I never know. Okay,
yeah, it's usually them pretending that it got leaked so you get excited about it. Like there's nothing more juicy than good gossip. Where I'm not supposed to know this. I'm not supposed to know this about this movie. Now there's other leaks. Obviously, you mentioned Snow White earlier, right? I mean, that's insider info.
Damage that movie.
Yeah, like there's stuff that does leak out from the company because people are pissed off, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. People have big mouths, right? But if you see something that's like, oh, this hot new product, it's fake news, man. They leaked it themselves, so you hear about it, because then you go, oh my god, we're not supposed to know this. And it's way more interesting than clicking on a pop ad, right? They want it to go viral, like nothing really goes viral on its own anymore. It's usually like someone paid to make it go viral. Someone told somebody. It's the oldest trick in the book kind of thing, right? Like it's it's not new.
Because the other thing I wanted to ask you was about the customer angle, which is, you said you had some horror stories. Is the horror stories based off people not coming in and picking up their pull list and leaving it there just to add up books for months and not pay it off?
Well, I was going to mention that when you mentioned that earlier about that guy in that picture. So
remember that, yeah.
When that happened, people asked me about that. They said, "Does this happen to you?" I said, "Yeah, it happens all the time." And they said, "Well, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you take deposits up front? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" It's like, there's a lot of things you can do. And when you generally order your comics online, you have to pay for them up front. It's like Amazon. Amazon doesn't send it to you. You pay for when it gets there. Yeah, like so, and that's fine. That's how some people deal with it. With us, though, if you've got and I've seen this a lot. I've seen it a lot over 20 years. If you've got a customer that, let's say, he buys 10 titles a month, right? And then he has a bad month and he gets overwhelmed and da-da-da-da-da. If that customer has been with you for 10 years reading all the Spider-Man titles, and then he flakes out on you the last year or the last 6 months, and you get stuck with that giant stack, he may have stuck you with that giant stack, but his life as a customer was, massive. So if you look at him that way, as that customer as an individual investment, you're only losing a couple percent, right? On top of that, what you can do with those comics is some of them you can put them back on the shelf and they will sell off the shelf for full price. Maybe not all of them, but if you're creative as a retailer, you can take those comics and you can pack them up in runs, and then you can discount them, and you're going to get most of your money back. Or you can just take them and put them in grab bags or dollar bins, like, hey, like 10.
Do you guys still potentially sell the stuff to Walmarts? I know Walmarts used to have like packages of stuff.
Yeah, that's not us. That would be Marvel or DC doing that. That wouldn't be us.
Okay.
But I'm saying, like, you can sell to, like, we do it with our old back issues. Instead of putting them in with our old, like, new comics, we don't have a back issue bin. We pack them up into grab bags of 10. And then sell them for $10. Now, again, those comics, the 10 comics is probably worth $50, and you're only getting $10 for them, right? But I didn't pay $50 for those comics. I bought them at a less price and I marked them up, right? So my loss becomes smaller and smaller. Like I said, if you look at the customer over his overall or her overall lifespan, they're really only hurting you a small percentage. And like I said, you can creatively mitigate that damage different ways as a smart retailer. So that picture, when I saw that picture come out and people were all upset about it, like, can you believe people do this to us? I was like, it's kind of an unfair, like, look at the problem. And it also kind of unfairly guilt trips customers, because I genuinely don't believe that when we have customers flake out on us like that, they do it maliciously. Usually what happens is your cat gets sick, your car breaks down, you lose your job, you
Yeah,
have
just
to,
life shit
you're
happens.
ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get overwhelmed. And stereotypically, comic book collectors are a little bit more, let's say, gentle, fragile, and they don't like confrontation. They don't want to feel bad. And so all of a sudden, their favorite hobby is this source of embarrassment for them. And you call them, you go like, hey, like your file's piling up. Can we come see you? And they go, yeah, sure. I'll come in soon. And they don't. And then you call them and they start avoiding your phone calls. And that happens. And it's really embarrassing and hurtful to them. And so I don't like the idea that we're taking these pictures and showing it to people being like, can you believe this piece of shit? Can I cuss on your show, by the way? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you believe this POS did this to us? You're making it a negative experience for the customers, because your good customers now feel, if I ever fall behind, if I ever fall behind, he's going to think of me that way, and he's going to embarrass me publicly. And you're putting this negative aspect on your customers that I don't think is really productive. So
and keep in mind, with the picture, he didn't name any names. He just said,
no.
It basically said like deadbeat. I'm paraphrasing here. Deadbeat customers basically caused me to kind of fall into debt with all these unsold books.
Like I said, he could figure out ways to recover that cost. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And like I said, it's hurtful to paint your customers as potential deadbeats, and I'm sure whoever stiffed them with those comics that month felt really guilty, and they're never coming back. And the reality is we've had a lot of customers over the years that have left us, have quote unquote deadbeated on us, and they eventually come back, and they usually say, hey, I'm sorry that I did that. I was just, I got overwhelmed. And I always tell them the same thing. It's okay, man. It's all good. Don't worry about it. We got through it. And for other stores, if you're hurting financially and you're going in the red because your customers are deadbeating on you, I understand you're going to be a lot more emotional and a lot more upset about it, but it's not productive to carry that negative baggage with you. Just like adapt, move on, and keep moving forward.
Yeah. Also, I came to a very similar conclusion too, because I do blame fault on various parties, but I do blame fault a little bit more on the owner or whoever's running the shop, because if there's a ton of people, potentially out of like 50, let's say 30 of them are not coming in for their books, why do you keep ordering? Like, you have to take them off. There's no point in continuing to add them to their pull list when they're not coming in. Like, where does the onus kind of fall on the person doing the decision rather than the person that's coming not in?
So a couple things happen. Number one, like, you usually don't notice it. Usually, like, what happens with a lot of customers is they have like a kind of a addictive collector mentality. So they want every Spider-Man title, and Marvel will give them every Spider-Man title. They will cram Spider-Man down their goddamn throat. And then eventually they get overwhelmed. And so all of a sudden you go like, hey, I haven't seen Gary in a while. Gary's file's pulling up. We'll call Gary up. You give Gary a call, and Gary says, yeah, I'll be in there soon, right? So you go, okay, cool. And then you just, Gary's good for it. He's been a loyal customer for 10 years. You give him the benefit of the doubt. And all of a sudden you notice that, well, Gary hasn't come in since then, right? And so maybe you cut Gary off, maybe you don't. But it's this kind of thing that kind of happens naturally. Like, nobody just really notices it. And, like maybe the customer should have cut them off first. But we also have a lot of guys that they disappear for a year. You give them a call and they show up and they buy their entire file. They buy a bunch more stuff off the shelf. Maybe they're out of town. Maybe they got a new job. Maybe they got busy with wife and kids, because they grow up.
They have subscriptions. Like, there's people that literally have gym subscription or memberships that they completely forgot about. That they just keep paying. Yeah.
There's people we used to see every week. Then we saw them every month. Then we saw them every 6 months. Then we see them every year. But they still buy all their stuff. Things just change. Life changes. You grow up. You get married. You get a new job.
Oh, that's gross. Fired. Marriage? Yeah. Oh, dang it. Who does that? This 2025. Oh, you're yeah.
Only jewelry I wear. So it happens a lot more innocently and organically than I think people think it does. Because like I said, if all you see is that picture, you go, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. What an idiot. It didn't happen that way. It happens a lot different way. And every retailer will tell you that. Like, it happens a lot different than you think it does. And people go like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about the retail side of it, and you said you had some big mishaps, is like, what else would be a uncommon thing that no one would talk about generally that happens quite often in your field?
Specifically to retail or specifically to comic book retail?
Either or.
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't matter.
Like, we're in downtown, right? So you get a lot of weird things. You get, like someone stepped in dog shit and, dragged it into the store. And you're just like, come on, man.
Oh
Stuff like
God.
that, right? That's weird. The big one, though, that I think affects our industry the most is because we are like a very collector mentality. Any
Very true.
kind of any kind of damages or missed opportunity just hits our business harder. Like, for example, our distributor was not able to deliver our Pokemon pre-release stuff to us for this new set, right?
Oh no, that's not good.
People are losing their minds because not only are they missing out on this product they love, like the new set, they were really excited, they want to do their thing, and someone has taken that from them. I mean, the hype around Pokemon hoarding right now is through the roof. So we have
I know what
guys
you mean.
calling us
Yep.
nonstop going, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And there's this whole group of people that are our regulars who pre-ordered it and they're ready for it and they want to get it. And they go, oof, I'll get it. I don't have to worry about the hoarders. And we just pulled the rug out from under them. And it's not our fault. The distributor and Pokemon had a miscommunication. There was a problem on their end. And now I have to do that to them. And that's causing, like, I'm getting so many phone calls, so many emails.
Yeah.
And
you got any 151 Scarlet and Violet stories?
God, no, yeah, no, because we don't get enough of it, right? Like, it's gone, right?
Oh, really? Yeah, because that's what I heard for Scarlet and Violet 151. Pokemon essentially kind of short printed it so hard that people are just lining up outside of Costco's and fighting each other over it. Good Lord. Literally, when I went to Walmart just a few days ago, I got one, but we had a little mini line there for the guy literally just stocking it right there. God, man.
So the saddest thing we see about that, I mean, obviously, you're going to see an influx of new people looking for that product, right? So you're going to get your regulars, they're going to come in and get it, but there's going to be this whole group of new people that come up and show, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Like, I get it. Like, it's a hot new product, more people want it. I got no problem with that. What you get, though, are the grifters. These are the guys that roll in and go like, oh, my kid just needs this one. My kid just needs this. Like, it's
guilt
his
trippers.
birthday. I love it.
God.
And you're like, sorry, man. Like, I don't have any left to sell you, man. And he's like, oh, that's okay. I went to Costco and I bought two pallets full already. You're like, there you go. A little liar. I see how this works.
You use the basically.
Yeah,
they try to guilt trip you, but you get them to admit basically a confession where they basically just admit it themselves.
Yeah, and
I love it.
You'll see them literally outside the store. They'll send their kid in, they'll send their wife in, they'll send their other kid in, and each kid will come in and do like the one per customer thing. And you're just like, I know what you're doing, man. Like, please just stop lying to me. It's okay. Like, someone will call and be like, hey, like, do you have any of this? Like, yeah, I have 2 left. It's 1 per customer. Okay, cool. And then all of a sudden their girlfriend calls and goes, hello there. I am just curious if you happen to have these new Pokemon cards. And then when they come on pickup day to pick it up, they show up 2 minutes apart from each other too. And you're just like, I know what you guys are doing, man.
Yeah,
like,
man.
It's okay. I get it. Just don't be greedy.
Sparkles asked, what's the most popular comic you sell at your store?
Right now, probably Absolute Batman.
For sure. Yeah, very good.
Ultimate Spider-Man. Those have really jumped. We are a huge Conan the Barbarian town, so we sell a lot of Conan. It's really weird. Traditionally, regular Batman and regular Spider-Man were really strong, but those new ones, we are. It's working.
What about the trade for Ultimate Spider-Man, the first volume? Would you say that is a strong seller too?
It is. It's not as strong as you would think it is because we're selling so many issues. So the stronger the issues, the weaker the graphic novel sales typically. And if it's the same thing when people hate on New 52 and they say like New 52 sucked. No, it didn't. New 52 sold like a son of a bitch. We sold tons of New 52. Same thing with like Absolute Batman, Ultimate Spider-Man. We are selling tons of this. We are seeing lapsed fans come in who are like, oh, I've dropped off of comics. They wanted a new jump on point. Same thing with Batman. Like, I've heard about this crazy new take on Batman. He's got an axe. He's all huge. Tell me about it. And luckily for those ones, I mean, you got Hickman and what's his nuts?
Marco Cicchetto?
No, what's the writer of
Scott Snyder.
Snyder, yeah. You've got those two, which those are I think it's fair to say they're A-list writers. So you have A-list talent on those books right now. So the hype, the reality is living up to the hype. Yeah. So people are coming in, they've heard about this product, they're trying it, and they're liking it. So it's like, oh, okay, good. Whereas like there's other product that gets hyped up, and then when it's time to deliver, it doesn't live to the hype because they put kind of B.
You know what I think it is? I think that notion that the average person is not as involved on the internet has changed actually a lot, because you start to notice certain things about people. I think more people are in the know now compared to how it used to be. But like if you made that argument back in the day, I believe like the average person probably really wasn't on the internet that much. But I think times have changed so much to the point where I think the average person actually is on the internet, like at least lurking to some degree more than they used to.
You can tailor your interests more, right? Like when I was a kid, I used to buy Game Pro magazine for my video game news, right? But now you can sign up for a multitude of feeds on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all those things, right? So you're going to find out about those big ticket things faster and easier, and they're not so niche anymore.
And Absolute Batman, I imagine when the trade drops for the first 6 issues, because issue 6 just came out this week when we're doing this episode of the MSK show. Imagine it's going to sell very well. I know the second trade paperback for Ultimate Spider-Man just dropped this week too. I made sure I bought it. I accidentally ordered it again on Amazon. Hopefully they canceled my order, but I shipped it through Prime, so hopefully they can cancel my order and give me a refund. But if they don't, I'll just give it to someone, because it only costs like $15.
DC is really bad where they put their big titles in hardcover first.
They do.
Yeah,
I noticed that. Yeah.
Traditionally, hardcover sells worse. So I'm a little bit like, I hope they put out the soft cover first for Absolute Batman.
More colors will do that. Like you'll notice that. I'm glad you talked about that. They'll release hardcover and then soft cover or trade paperback on the same day, or they'll release just a hardcover first, and then like months later they'll release a trade. Like for Superman by Joshua Williamson, they released a hardcover. Then they released a trade like 3 months later. I'm like, what the fuck?
So the way they used to do it, like Marvel for a while there would do hardcover and softcover at the same time, and that would always kind of cannibalize the hardcover sale. I think if you look at traditional book publishing, like novels, they do a hardcover first and eventually they go to the softcover. Typically in comic books, though, for us at least, people want the softcover, and then if they like it, they're going to buy the collector's hardcover, right? So like, I don't know if you can see any of them here. Oh yeah, maybe you can see it up here. Oh, you can't see it. Screw it. I got a giant. It's called the In Call. I got a giant collector hardcover for the In Call, and I have the smaller softcover or smaller hardcover as well, because I love that story so much. I wanted to buy the special edition, and I think a lot of comic book buyers are like that. So I think DC is shooting themselves in the foot, going with the traditional novel marketing, where it's like, yeah, let's sell the hardcover first. I think they would sell more soft covers, but then in the long run, they wouldn't sell as many hardcovers, and there's a better markup on hardcovers because they're so much more expensive. So you're going to make more money selling those. So I think they're looking at it the wrong way, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if you go talk to a guy who works at DC, he says, we sell tons of hardcovers. You know nothing what you're talking about. Because my customers don't buy as many hardcovers.
Yeah. So for me, it just depends. Like, I think some of your customers would agree with this too. If I get a book in a certain format, I want it in that format only. So like the new Detective Comics stuff that comes out in hardcover first and then comes out on trade the same day. If I already have that run specifically in hardcover, I would just want it in hardcover, because that would look kind of weird having a hardcover and a trade.
Like when they change the logos on the side, that drives me nuts.
They do. Yeah.
Drives me
so like
nuts.
for World's Finest, for the run currently by Mark Waid and Dan Mora, I got a hardcover of it, and I was like, you know what, this is pretty cool. But then I accidentally ordered volume 2 in a trade. So I just wanted, so I rebought the first trade in soft cover, and I just bought the rest of them in soft cover. Yeah, it can get kind of confusing if I'm just OCD like that. I have to have it in one form a certain way, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. Like it's like I said, we have that collector mentality, right? Like you want things consistent, and that's what drives that industry, though. So it's totally fair.
Does the regular Spider-Man book sell very well? The recent one that basically is now going to end with 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, but was previously Zeb Wells on the title. Did that ever sell well?
That's probably our best-selling Marvel title until Ultimate Spider-Man. It has dropped off a little bit in the last little while, but they're relaunching it again, so it's probably going to pick back up. But I think if you like Spider-Man, but you don't love Spider-Man, and you're going to pick one Spider-Man title, you're probably going to stick with Amazing. But if you're a new buyer, you're probably going to go with the hotter title, right? You're probably going to go with Ultimate. I think
for sure.
I think we saw our Amazing guys try Ultimate and go like, I only need one. Whereas we saw more new people to Spider-Man pick Ultimate over Amazing.
Yeah, because I read the first trade paperback for Zeb Wells' Spider-Man, World Without Love, and I was like, okay, I didn't hate it. It was just the aspects of Peter Parker that were very, very how would you say, cuckish, very.
Okay.
Like they just really treated him that as like a Peter Parker, but the other Spider-Man stuff was great. It was just I have a lot of them. I just haven't gone back to read the rest of them, not yet, because I've just been so busy. But Ultimate Spider-Man, the first volume was fantastic. I'd imagine the second one is good. I'd hope it's good. Like the Ultimate Spider-Man number 15 is dropping this week coming up. I imagine it's still a bestseller. Yeah, because you know, you put something out there. Like, do you remember when it was announced on Twitter that they were gonna do it? And man, just the love that it got. Like, people don't know, you had to be there when that first issue dropped for Ultimate Spider-Man. You had to be there for it. It was just
it was
sold out completely.
I think it caught a lot of people off guard because people forget, like, the Ultimate Universe faded away. You know, it was a hot property, and then it faded away, became redundant. And then for it to come back, I think people thought it'd be a little gimmicky. But you know, honestly, like, ever since Fantastic Four, I don't sleep on Hickman. Like, we ordered a ton of those Doom books that came out, and nobody pre-ordered it. But I said, no, don't sleep on Hickman, man. He knows what he's doing. He totally rejuvenated X-Men for us too. And so, yeah, like, just don't sleep on that guy.
Yeah, he has this issue where he does that Achiri to Oda thing from One Piece where he sets up a lot of stuff. Because you read Ultimate Invasion. It's like, bro, he does this setup so hard. It's like, why do you have to set up everything? Can I get some love here where it's something else? Like, can I get some action somewhere? You know, but he's very talented. It's just that setup is so just. But when I read the first trade paperback for Ultimate Spider-Man, none of that was really there. I was like, completely different dude I'm reading here. It's like not really set up. It was just it flowed very, very well. You know,
I think people probably different challenge, right? Yeah, different mandate, I think, on that.
Do you think it's selling because Mary Jane and Peter Parker are together? Because I think it's a great aspect of the book as a selling point.
We do hear that a lot from some of our older customers, that they connect to it a little bit more. You know, and that's one of the hard problems of comics, is that as you grow up, you don't really want to read about teenage Peter Parker anymore because you're not a teenager anymore.
You'd expect him to grow up with you. I think that's that child in us. You expect him to grow up with you.
But they did that, and it also failed because, like what I said earlier about, like, not being able to take your toys with you. If all of a sudden Spider-Man's an adult, he's not really that teenager you like anymore, right?
True.
So you got it. But Marvel's smart about, they're offering both. You know, they're offering, because when they first offered Ultimate Spider-Man, remember, Ultimate Spider-Man was the movie Spider-Man. It was the Spider-Man people knew about, right? Whereas Amazing at the time was like this married, you know, version that people didn't recognize anymore. So Marvel, I think, is smarter to make Amazing the more recognizable Spider-Man and have Ultimate Spider-Man be the alternate Spider-Man. Right? So it kind of preserves the brand a little better that way, I think.
Oh, the other thing I want to ask about you is the comic book you're going to do. You're going to do your own comic book, actually. So you're going to go through all of the
So
issues.
I've been making my own web comic for about 10 years now. This is what we're here to talk about. It's called Life the Necropolis. It's it's a sci-fi comic. It's about a wandering mercenary. I call it like Conan in space. I call it G.I. Joe versus aliens. I used to call it Star Wars meets Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and then they made this show called The Mandalorian, which basically is exactly that. It stole my damn catch line. But yeah, it's, you know, I think I was looking at it anyway. I said, like, what did I think about it? I was like, Star Wars meets Beavis and Butthead. Anyways, so right now I'm in my my first Kickstarter for my third printed comic. It's called Pranger. I'm over 200% funded now. I got about 2 weeks left. So if you go to Kickstarter and look up Life the Necropolis Pranger, you can see my Kickstarter there. I have a copy of my second book here. Right here. Oh, this is the second one I did. It was called The Red Wizard.
90-ish.
Well, it's it's a throwback, like a retro comic to like 70s and 80s European sci-fi.
Okay, so that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, like my favorite artists are Mobius and Carlos Esquerra. Carlos Esquerra co-created Judge Dredd. That's one of my favorite comics of all time. Probably the comic I read the most of. And I'll try to give you a couple of shots here. You know, just kind of.
Fun fact for you. I went through some of the preview pages on your Kickstarter. It gave me a. Damn, it would be that kind of movie where you would kind of feel it's very like European sci-fi-ish, honestly.
Yeah. And that's like, if you've ever watched things like Wizards or the Heavy Metal cartoon, that's really what I'm going for. Like, most people recognize it as like, hey, this reminds me of Heavy Metal magazine.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm going for. You know, like it's I'm
Because I
not
wanted to ask you this because you
hiding
mentioned
that at all.
a second ago. You said that this is your third one you're doing, your third Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So
no,
I'd imagine
it's my first Kickstarter, my third issue.
okay, so you have your first Kickstarter, third issue. So what are you essentially? Because you know people have different jobs on their own title. I imagine you're the writer, right?
Oh, no, I do it all, 100%.
You do you do the art, lettering,
everything.
Inks. What the hell? So I imagine you save a lot of money.
Well, it's a passion project, right? It's part of me is because I'm a control freak like that. I want to control everything about it. It's for me. It's my art project, right? It's exactly the way I want to do it. So the only thing I don't do is I don't physically print it. You know, like there's a printer in town here that does it for me, but I do everything else.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. You don't find it like exhausting some days, just making like sequencing and paneling and all that stuff. And
it's exhausting as all hell, and I hate everything about it. So I heard this interview on Cartoonist Kayfabe with Brian K. Vaughan, and he said he loves coming up with ideas and he loves the finished product and he hates everything in between. I am exactly the same way. I love coming up with ideas and I love seeing this like this. I love this. But everything I had to do in here was awful. I am tired as all hell. I get 4 hours of sleep a night because of the Kickstarter and everything else right now. I am tired as all hell, but I absolutely love it. I absolutely think it's worth it, but it is exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting.
God, man, like people don't get it when it comes to like people thought getting the comics and reading them is just a thing in itself. Making one is a lot. Like a guy like you, we have a very similar guy here named Lunchbox Warren. He does everything himself too, writes inks and letters. That's crazy. Like you guys are insane.
I'm only able to do 2 pages a month. I only do 1 comic a year. Like it takes a lot of time. Like once I'm done talking to you, I'm going to go eat dinner and then I'm going to go up to my room and just start drawing.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, you know, same thing, you know, I go to work Monday to Friday. I come home, eat dinner, spend time with my wife and my dogs, and then I go work.
What? You spend time with your wife over comic books? Crazy.
That's right. Man. So some things in life are better than comics. It's true.
No. Don't let them fool you guys that everything in life is better with comic books.
And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to tell you like oh poor me, like, you know, like, oh how much, like I choose to do this. I enjoy doing this as a hobby. I enjoy like if you've ever done art and then not done it, that period of time where you don't do it is just a void. It's the worst because you have this thing in you want to get out, right? So like I said, the finished product, like having the ideas and being able to express those ideas is the best. It's the best thing. And I love doing it. The only problem I have right now is that I'm doing so much time on my comic that I can't paint my little Warhammer figurines. I can't play my little board games. I can't do those things. I want to do more things, but I'm 40 and I'm tired. God damn it.
Yeah. I know how you feel, man. It's one of those things where like, I think later on in life, as you mentioned, you kind of figure out where you want to kind of place your time. Like when you know you have free time, you're like, okay, no more of this because it's kind of a waste of time right now. I can put this on the back burner. Where's my time fully dedicated to? I went through that a while ago too. I was like, okay, I'm spending my time doing a lot of things, but where do I want to put most of my time to when I do have free time? You know?
And like I said, like getting older is a real thing. You know, I mean, we had an employee at the store who was 20. He was like fresh out of high school. He was into university, and we had him, and he was dedicated to every board game we had in the store. And all of our customers who were kind of more around my age, give or take 10 years, they were kind of like, man, where does he get the time and energy? I was like, well, he's single and he's 20. He has nothing but energy. I was like, you get old and you get tired, and sometimes you just got to take a nap.
Yeah. Like, man, I don't know if you've seen it on here. We review comics pretty much literally weekly at this point. Coming up on Tuesday, we're going to be reviewing the Batman Hush trade paperback, because Hush 3, even it's calling it Hush 2. Hush 2 is coming out, you know? So we're going to be reviewing the Hush trade paperback, the first one, then Heart of Hush, and then we're going to go into Batman 158 because that's like technically the third Hush. Did you guys get big orders for? Did you guys order Batman 158 because it's going to be a book that people are going to be looking forward to?
I up-ordered it. The problem is like in pro wrestling they call it hot shotting, where you kind of can't keep doing the big thing every week because it gives you nowhere to go. So DC is riding this lightning bolt with Absolute Batman.
Yeah.
So now I want to take all of that and I want them to buy another title. And instead of like having two massive hits, I might end up splitting the success between the two. And so because everyone's so excited about Absolute Batman, there's not really nearly as much buzz about Hush 2. Right? Because they're still just excited about Absolute Batman. And so I ordered more, absolutely, but I'm not expecting it to do as well. And that's kind of unfair because I'm not saying it's going to be a bad title. I'm sure it's going to be a very good title, probably on par with the first one. But the first one had Jim Lee doing Batman for the first time, right? This is Jim Lee doing Batman 20 years later. Is there going to be as much excitement? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say, right? So it's not going to, it's inherently going to be a step down, you know? So there just wasn't as much excitement, but I over ordered it. Like I went beyond my pre-orders to order it just in case, because it's probably going to do well, you know, but we'll see.
Yeah. That's the thing too, with like dropping like, you know, Absolute Batman and it running concurrently with Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb, you know, on Hush 2 right now, is that, you know, people are going to have to basically pick and choose. But I tell people, this is what happens with Batman and people like Spider-Man. They're going to get, most people are just going to get them both, you know? Like, why would I have to pick one or the other? Unless you have, like I said earlier, with customers and subscriptions, money problems. But if you don't have money problems, you're just going to get them both. Like, I'm just going to get them both, you know? And just go through them whenever I can, you know?
And our situation is different than your situation because the Canadian dollar is in the toilet right now because of all this trade stuff, right? So our comics cost more money than they did a year ago. And so those are probably going to be more expensive comics. They're probably going to be $4.99 US, maybe even $5.99 US. So that's getting closer to $8, $9, $10 Canadian. So now you're going, okay. And if everything else at the grocery store costs more money because of the tariffs and stuff, it's easier for people to make cuts. And it's easier for people to go like, I only need one Batman title. So those things might affect us here locally more than they would affect you guys, right?
Yeah, because we saw those, you know, news articles come out about basically a lot of the prices for comic books are going to be increasing. Like indie comic books are going to be increasing too. Like people from like I say Mad Cave and Titan Books. And, good lord, man. $5.99. Holy fucking shit, man.
So far, so good on that. We are not getting hit. Like Pokemon and Magic got tariffed, so those are going up by like 25%. But comics don't seem to be. It's going to be interesting to see graphic novels because a lot of graphic novels are printed in China, but a lot of comics are printed in Canada, and then they go back and forth across the border. And I think technically, I'm not positive about this, so don't actually me. I think technically though, those are going to be exempt from that tariff because it's inter North American trade, right? I'm not positive. It might still be exempt, but you know, they're going to be talking about this again in April, and maybe the tariffs go away, maybe they get worse. So what I'm saying right now may not be true a week from now.
That's fine. The other thing I wanted to ask you is based off some of the newer things Marvel and DC are doing to try to get new readers. When you say like earlier, jumping on points, are the DC compact comics doing well? Because people don't know what those are. They're essentially like taller than manga size for popular characters, collecting an entire run of a story arc in a single book. So do those sell very well? I know Marvel did their recently with their premiere editions, but DC did it first. Are the DC compact comics decent sellers actually?
Yes, wildly successful.
Okay, that's good. That's good to hear.
Huge. Great. And for anyone who's like a snob like me, like because you can get Watchmen in that format, you know, and you can see behind me here. I have Absolute Watchmen. I love Watchmen, right? Like, I looked over that book. The paper is really nice, and the art doesn't lose anything, and it still reads nice. So if you are just picking that up, going like, "Hey, this is not bad," you know, it's a great way to read it. We have guys rebuying it, so we have like a portable edition. We have new people trying it for the first time. That's a really good way to do it. DC has also tried those DC Finest graphic novels. That's like their epic.
I have those. They're right there. I have them.
Those aren't selling as well because they are still quite expensive. But it's clear to me that someone in the DC, I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically the reprint division. There's some kind of changeover. The mandate has changed there, and they're coming up with those really cheap volumes and those best of things. And those have both been a big success, I think. You know, the epic collections and the DC Finest are tough because they are usually for us they're around $50 Canadian. Yeah, and that's a tough ask. You're definitely limiting your customer pool on those. But those DC Finest, I mean, we can't keep those damn things on the shelf.
Yeah,
Or no,
those.
excuse me, the DC Compact. The DC Compact we can't keep on the shelf.
Yeah, and there's more coming out. There's different
Yeah.
waves of them coming out, and I think the first
Marvel should adjust. Marvel should adapt. Marvel should change their premiere and do that same thing. They should steal their idea.
because Marvel basically are trying to do the same thing, but you know the price on Marvel's their premiere edition because they launched it with they're Born Again, Black Panther with Ta-Nehisi Coates, Winter Soldier, and I think the other ones I forgot the last one they're going to put out this year. They're only going to put out 4, I think, potentially this year. They said the second wave is going to have X-Men. They're charging $14.99 US, but DC's charging $10 for their Compact Comics. But but it's like they know it sells very well at $10. Why are they charging $15 for theirs? Like, what is different about theirs compared to DC's? I don't get it. You know.
So someone told me about this a long time ago when they talked about the Jonah Hex title. They said the Jonah Hex title is like a write-off. Basically, they said it's like R&D. It's IP development, whatever the heck it does. What DC is doing, we've seen a lot of companies do this over the year with theirs, is they're making it so cheap that, you know, it's like the first one's always free. Like, why wouldn't you try that, right? It's an advertising. It's like why Walmart sells their DVDs under cost. It gets you in the door. So if you heard about Watchmen and you want to try it now for $10, I mean, you'd be crazy not to try it. And I think what Marvel is doing is Marvel is still trying to make money on those. DC is losing money or breaking even, and Marvel is trying to profit on them. DC values the exposure, whereas Marvel values the profit a little bit more. I think that's my speculation on that.
Yeah, because just having them essentially in like Targets or Walmart, if they do, because I know they do it with Dollar Tree now. DC has a deal with them to put like the $1.29 comics in there. I want people to understand that exposure is what you really want to have, like you said, because just someone getting exposed to it is all that matters, because you could create a lifelong fan out of it. You know, people go, what if those stories are bad? Let that person decide that. That doesn't mean anything.
Those are their best sellers, right? Like, it's almost a guaranteed success. Like Watchmen wasn't my Watchmen. Like, my Watchmen was a series called JSA Liberty Files. That was the comic series that I read as a teenager that changed my mind. I went from Liberty Files to Dark Knight Returns to Watchmen. But Watchmen is still Watchmen. You're still going to give that book to someone for the first time, and it's going to completely change their mind about comics. And it's one of their best sellers. So it's a win-win. You can't lose with that. And like you said, like the exposure, the introducing people to the new hobby, like, yeah, you've already let the market decide what are the best titles. It's win-win-win-win. Like, you almost can't lose selling someone a cheap copy of Watchmen, because they're going to go, what else you got? What else is new?
Because I think the first trial around for some of those books, they had like throwaway characters in there to see if they kind of hit lightning in a bottle. Because, you know, sometimes things can hit lightning in a bottle later on than when they first drop. Like, but let's be honest, no one's really interested in like Far Sector. But I think they understand that. But sometimes you never know. Like, sometimes things might pick up fire later on compared to when they first drop. But there's going to be some throwaway characters, and you're like, oh, okay, DC, you're smoking crack on these ones.
Far Sector was not a very good seller for us, but there was a lot of hype around it outside of the comic sphere. And the problem with Green Lantern is that if you don't do Far Sector for a Green Lantern thing, what do you do? Well, Blackest Night. Well, Blackest Night is like the third part of a story, right? Like, it's the end of the trilogy, right? Okay, well, Sinestro Corps War. Sinestro Corps War is one of my favorite series. It's super inside. If you don't know the history of those characters, it's not a very good intro to Green Lantern. Okay, well, what about Green Lantern Rebirth? Again, continuity heavy. So if you're going to pick Green Lantern because Green Lantern's a viable IP to put on the big screen, what Green Lantern story do you pick? There's not a lot of good options. A lot of them are continuity heavy. So maybe Far Sector was the best choice. And again, like I said, it had a lot of hype outside of the comic sphere. I'm move my mic a little bit. Hopefully it picks up better.
You're good. Yeah, it's also one of those things where, you know, some characters might be able to kind of allow you to test the market and be like, okay, this character kind of doesn't work. Maybe it was the wrong group of books for it to be a part of, you know, because like the second wave for the compact comics is going to be a lot more different from the first wave. You know, the first wave is all just like testing the waters. You have All-Star Superman, which is based off the new movie coming up. Batman got Court of Owls and Hush in his first time. You know, it's Batman. He always gets the best stuff, apparently. Wonder Woman got like Earth One. Like, did a lot of people read Wonder Woman Earth One? You know? Well, maybe that compact comic version will give you more of a condensed way of reading it. See if you maybe want to try more Wonder Woman titles.
What's the other one? Dead Earth. They should almost try Dead Earth. That was a big seller for us.
God, they're doing Deceased. I know that's in wave 2 from Tom Taylor.
That's got a lot of hype behind it. You got to remember too, DC's not going to put their entire range in that format.
Oh
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
true.
So
Yeah.
we're not going to get every Wonder Woman title like that. We're not going to get everyone. It's going to be their bestseller, like
Mhm.
taster line, right? And eventually it's going to peter out, you know. But they're gonna, they got to pick some titles, and you gotta. There's
What's up,
probably a
Eric?
lot. Oh, I missed that. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sinister Corps Wars is what got me into comics after I graduated high school. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the Jeff Johns run?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
that's if the way they called it, like the Star Wars, like Green Lantern Rebirth was like the New Hope. Sinister Corps War was like Empire Strikes Back, and then Blackest Night was like Revenge of Return of the Jedi. And yeah, Sinister
Like,
Corps War was awesome. It was
I have to
fantastic.
get that omnibus because everyone like
Would
I don't
recommend.
own too much Green Lantern stuff. I own a bit like a look like I read the new Jeremy Adams Green Lantern run, the first trade paperback, which also collected the Night Terror stories. Great run. Honestly, really good starting out book. If you guys want to read Green Lantern, I recommend Jeremy Adams Green Lantern run. Just the first trade, it's only like $15. I'm pretty sure if you're not $15, then you probably shouldn't be buying comic books in general. But everyone always talks about that omnibus from EVS and Jeff Johns. That's their that's their favorite Green Lantern run. That's crazy how someone could be someone's favorite years later on down the road. That's insane.
I think, honestly, Blackest Night was kind of a little down for me, but I think the peak was Sinister Corps War. It worked so well, and I don't want to spoil the ending, but the ending comes together. It just really comes together.
You're gonna make me do another PayPal paying for.
I would recommend it because
he's guilting me. He's doing
it's so much more than punchy kicky. There's a lot of good politics in that book. Just dynamics between the characters, between Hal and Sinestro. I would recommend. If I'm gonna recommend one Green Lantern title to a comic fan, it would be that one. Yeah. Because I think, but maybe not like a non-comic fan, because again, it's a lot to take in. But if you get comics and you know what you're in for, go for it. If you're not afraid of a Wikipedia article, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, that's always been an omnibus on my to-do list to buy. Also, I also tell people this too. If you're someone that doesn't like maybe getting a comic and having something like end on like a half note, get an omnibus. You'll get a full. You can take your time reading it. They're like 800. Some of you guys literally 800 pages. You take your time reading it, but you get a full completed story most of the time, unless they have. Well, most of them have volumes, but you get a nice chunk of a story actually. Because I feel like when it comes to like comic book people, the people that have been doing it for long kind of think that everyone else does it like them. Some people just prefer reading stuff all at once. Some people prefer reading stuff in like mini little chapters.
Yep. There's no, to me, like with comic book formats, whether it's issues, graphic novels, hardcovers, there's no wrong answer. Whatever you like, man. Whatever. Yeah. I got no time for that kind of snobbery. I have no interest in that.
Yeah, that's what always hurts me sometimes. Is like some people that have been doing it very, very long will just act like pricks, and it's like, just calm down. It's not that big of a deal,
That's some other issue in their life creeping up and being, coming out as like comic book elitism, right? So if you I don't got time. Like I always tell people, no one goes to the comic book store to be cool. You know what I mean? That's what I like about it. I used to be really into hardcore punk when I was a kid, and that is all just one big peacock contest. And it was so refreshing going to comic book stores where everyone's just there because they love this stuff. Anyone goes to the comic store to be cool, don't waste your time on them. You got no time for those people.
It's crazy. There's always going to be that one guy, though. It's always got to be that guy.
Well, the irony was that for years we used to talk about like the only guys that do that are the guys that like Sandman, and well, that's not really cool anymore. So, and don't get me wrong, I like Sandman. I read him. I like him. But
man, did that create
as a stereotype
very well for people? I'm joking, guys. The inside joke.
Yeah, we won't go into that. We won't go into that. Yeah, nope.
Yeah, Dark Horse may or may not have canceled a certain line from that guy recently.
Sorry. We
won't
go into that.
What publisher outside of like the big two and maybe Image do you think does a good job that people are just kind of not looking at currently right now? Could be Dark Horse, Boom, others like Mad Cave, maybe, or Dynamite does some stuff.
There was a bunch that they've all kind of settled into their roles. Okay. And IDW for a while there was a big player, but then they lost their big IPs. They lost it to Image. Image has always been number 3, but they're really number 3 now. They're really cemented. They're doing a lot of big things. And there've been a lot of these kind of like fly by night kind of IP farming companies that have popped up where you can tell. I don't want to mention any names because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Because if you like your comics, like your comics. I like trash comics. I'm not trying to be a snob about it. But there's companies that you can tell that popped up real quick, and it was definitely like an investment firm popping that company up. And so those companies, some of those companies have vanished already, and so it's kind of hard to keep track on what the big ones were. I thought Titan was doing a lot because Titan got Conan and they were making some big waves, but a lot of them are kind of switching all over the place right now between the distributors. So it's kind of, for me, it's kind of hard to really put my finger on which one's like kind of the new kid in town, right? I think, yeah, like I said, Dark Horse is going through a lot right now. IDW is going through a lot right now. Was it Boom or was it Oni that declared bankruptcy too? Like one of them declared bankruptcy a little while
Boom
ago.
is gonna,
Yeah.
from what I heard, slashing a lot of their ongoing
Yeah.
titles coming up. Valiant laid off their entire creative team.
Yeah. So a
That
lot of
was
them are hurting right now.
Did that resurgence for Valiant ever pay off at your guys' store?
It did at the begind where people were excited to see them come back, and then it kind of petered out. And I'd always heard they were good. I tried the Dark Horse Magnus relaunch. Never mind, excuse me. My wife was reading Faith. My wife really liked Faith. And we tried to bring in some of the Bloodshot graphic novels around the time that that movie came out. And they didn't, people tried them, but they never really came back for them. So it was kind of a niche audience. I've heard Exo Manowar got good again though. But
yeah, and
again,
then you have companies like Dynamite who only
Yeah.
just license out other people's IP, like Thundercats. Did that Thundercats title ever sell very well?
Thundercats, yes. Thundercats is surprisingly doing good for us. The Disney ones are doing really good. But some of the other ones, like I love Silverhawks. I spent a lot of money on some Silverhawk toys recently. But that one's kind of fallen under the radar. Sorry, excuse me. I should have muted that. I forgot about it. Sorry. Dynamite's still kind of living in that little niche world where they're kind of like they're the licensed company. They're kind of taking like they're taking market share from IDW is what I was going to say. They're kind of stealing that audience over for us at least. Like I said, Dark Horse still kind of in that niche. They're kind of trying to find their new identity now, I think.
I think theirs is just basically printing manga omnibuses now. That's their thing.
Yeah, they got some of those titles, and then obviously their Hellboy universe is still a big one for us.
I never got into Hellboy. I never got the appeal of that character. Just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. It was a big wizard darling back in the 90s, and that's what kind of caught my attention. I liked the first movie, but he's kind of falling by the wayside lately. I think Manola there is kind of running out of steam on it, but try new things. We still have a loyal audience for it, so I'm not knocking it.
All right. Last few things I'll ask you before we head out, which is, do you have anything planned coming up in 2025 you want to let the audience know about?
Just my Kickstarter, man. Like my website is lifethen.com, LIFETHEN.com. Go to Kickstarter, look up Life Then Acropolis Pranger. Because once I get this thing printed, my plan is to start actually doing conventions for the first time. I was going to do conventions last year for this one, but I just, I came up with every excuse not to do it. And so this year, like my New Year's resolution this year was to go to conventions. And it's kind of tough in Canada because the next town, like the next comparable town is 2 hours over, and then, so there's a lot of driving, to go to another city of 100,000 people. So it costs a lot to go to conventions here, but that's my goal, man. Go to conventions and just start getting the word out as best I can. So yeah.
Also, are you gonna have a tough time fulfilling the book because you're just a one-man kind of army at your place right now?
In my Kickstarter, I offered a lot of art, so a lot of drawings that I'm gonna do, but I gave myself time to do those, and I've sold a fair bit of those, so that's probably gonna be the hardest part. Not really looking forward to that. Because screwing that up if I get late on it, like I'm excited that people are buying it. Like the Kickstarter is going better than I could have hoped for. You know what I mean? I was terrified that it was going to fail. I tried every reason I could think of to not do it, and then when I did it, it took off right away. I got funded in 24 hours.
Oh, it's great.
It's going really good. I mean, I was only asking for $1,000 Canadian. It wasn't a massive thing. So I just put that caveat in there. But it's gone better than I could hope, and I'm so glad that people are buying that art because it's hard for me to accept that people might want that. Like I just assume they're all humoring me. You know what I mean? Because that's what artists do to themselves. They just tear themselves apart. It's like, no, they don't even want this. So every now and again, I try to just think about like people want this, and it feels amazing. It feels great, and I'm really happy to do that for them. But like I said, the businessman in me is just like, I hope I hit my deadlines. You know, I'm terrified about not hitting my deadlines. I'm terrified about shipping issues, production
Next,
issues.
you'll become a big indie publisher, and then you'll start challenging Image. You got to just get 5 guys and sign a deal.
I think the way I explain is like I think I'll be able to finally enjoy it when it's done. You know what I mean? Like,
are you doing are you aiming for a 6-issue miniseries or just an ongoing series?
Every issue is a self-contained story, so I always tell people it's my new comic, not issue 3. Because it's like it's my new comic because I'm sold out of issue 1. I still have issue 2 and 3, but it's my new story, and I'd like to be able to eventually do a graphic novel. But the real thing I actually want to do is something like Heavy Metal, where I do a personal anthology comic, where I just, instead of doing one character in one story, I do a whole bunch of different ones. I'd love to be able to do that. That's like kind of my next goal.
Last thing I'll ask you, man, is are there any shout outs you want to give to anyone in particular, and anything else you want to say before we head out? Okay, you know what? One of my buddies on Blue Sky is doing a Kickstarter, so I'm going to give you the exact name of that because I want to shout him out right now. Because once I'm done this, I'm going to go back his Kickstarter. So where is it exactly here? Okay. Oh geez, I'm going to say this wrong. Shuja the Discriminator on Kickstarter right now. It's SHUJAA the Discriminator. So shouting him out. Go back his Kickstarter. Yeah, he's almost funded too. So yeah, go grab his book. Yeah, it's good to see, a new crop of people come up with their own independent comic books that they've managed to get funded and do. And, it's just a different form of, it gives you a different, let's say, angle at coming at comic books. You can see what like amateurs do and what they can improve on. And then you can see what bigger people do and what they fail on. It's a lot of melting pot, which is what I enjoy.
Yeah, I love it. I love seeing it. Like I usually try to back people, at least even digitally, just so you don't have to worry about shipping costs. Like if it's an economics thing, back them digitally, buy a PDF from them, help them out. And that's good for them too, because then it helps them pay for something else. Like this Kickstarter is helping me pay for the print run. And then if the print run does this, then I can pay for this other thing. Then I can pay for my conventions, right? So we're not making money hand over fist on these things unless you're one of those big projects, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Could you imagine if you made 10K off this? Holy crap.
Yeah, I would friggin' love that. I told someone at the beginning of this when I started, I was like, I would love to have to call my friend who's an accountant and say, I screwed up, man. Like I made too much money. Like now I need some tax advice. Give me some tax advice.
Yeah, God, please tax me more.
Yeah. But also, I just want to say too, thank you for having me on the show, man. I just put out a call for media, and you answered and said, "Hey, I'll have you on my show." It's like, so yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. In a while from now, we'll love to have you back on again after you fulfill your book and go over that experience of doing it. You say for the first time because this is your first one, so putting a book in a package and shipping it off to a lot of people. Oh God, good luck good luck on that.
The first two, I sold predominantly through the store. So this is me trying to break out into the world.
Yeah,
right?
It's like a kid. It's like you're basically the little baby bird going out away from the nest.
Yeah, everyone takes care of me real well locally. I was like, okay, now I got to go face the big scary world. So can't wait.
Hell yeah. So glad to have you on, man, for the first time. Great conversation. Thank you guys for checking out this episode of the MSK Show.